I send my child to a top 10 aviation college, or should I send them to a local college and let them go to a local flight school? We're going to answer that coming up in this podcast. We're going to give you both the pros and the cons as far as going to a large top 10 aviation university. First of all, my name is Carl Valeri. I've been a career coach in aviation since 2001, and I've been helping people move forward in their careers and towards those goals in their lives that are fit that career of an aviation. So let's get started with this. First, let me read his email here. It says, Carl, we truly enjoy your excellent podcast and have learned a great deal about the aviation industry through them. As parents, we greatly value your expert insights, which have helped us better understand the pilot career path. Do you feel that airline recruiters value an aviation management degree from a UND, a University of North Dakota, Embry-Riddle, that type of aviation college, compared to the traditional bachelors in, say, business from a local school with pilot training at an independent flight school? Also, in your view, does earning an aviation degree from a top aviation university provide meaningful advantages for aspiring pilots, not only in securing their first airline position, but also in building their long-term career through the strength of alumni connections and a professional network? All great questions. I'd love to hear from you what you think about sending your child or about going to one of those top 10 aviation universities and what you got out of it if you're listening or watching this right now. So let's start with the one thing that you said. There's a lot to unpack here, and I'm going to start out with the pros. The pros of going to a top 10 aviation school and doing all your training right there. Number one is the alumni network. Now, with that said, there's a lot of schools that aren't in the top 10 that have really large alumni networks. They may be 15, etc. And we know that. We know that through just in general, through the university programs, etc., in other fields. So yes, having a large alumni network is absolutely terrific. If you go to Embry-Riddle's website, why go to Embry-Riddle? They'll tell you right there that's one of the biggest things. Network, network, network. Also, the bigger the school, a top 10 school, usually the more graduates and the bigger the network. It's a numbers game. Of course, having a bigger network is going to help you. With all that said, we're seeing a growth in the aviation industry of many people going to online courses, et cetera, and also going to other schools that are going from zero to hero very quickly, and there's a big alumni network there too. Those are those schools that, and I'll throw it out there, ATP is one of them. That's one of their selling points, they say, is they have a very large network of people out there in the aviation field. So again, should you go to a large aviation university? It really depends. We'll get into some of the other pros. The other big pro of going to a large aviation university, a top 10 school, is the greater depth of knowledge. Of course, this is something you can do on your own, but if you go to a school, it's actually going to help you because you have to take those courses to make it through to the end, to be able to get that depth of knowledge. Good example, a whole course on weather, aviation weather theory, also on mechanics, on maintenance. At a bigger school, they'll actually have you go through a semester of just maintenance at a maintenance shop. Those are some terrific things that'll help you. Is it worth the cost? Again, that's something else to think about. The other thing, too, that we talk about is when you do get an aviation degree from a top 10 school, is there's greater opportunities for growth into management because of that network, because that network of alumni. And in general, think about this. If you have an alumni from a college, you're a recruiter, and you're thinking about hiring somebody, psychologically you may lean towards that school. I know I do that with the school that I'm from. I'm very excited to hear somebody went to the University of Scranton, and I'm excited to hear about other alumni that have gone there. And it may be an alumni in another school, like another Jesuit school. I'd like to hear from those too. So see how this network can grow. But of course, the bigger schools, that's another thing that they sell there. The other thing about a larger college is that there's a lot of pilot recruiting that goes on and events that are on those campuses. Even at some of the smaller schools, they have those events. But many times you'll see how some of these big airlines, they'll coordinate some of those events in the same area as those other big flight schools. That's why you see a lot of the big flight schools congregate in certain states and areas, Florida being one, Arizona, Southern California, Texas, etc. There are a lot of opportunities for people that are at those schools because people come to you. University of North Dakota, well, again, they're going to come to you there. The other thing that is great about a larger school, top 10 school, is getting involved in extracurricular activities. One of them being the flight team. As you know, I coached a flight team here at Polk State, got to the Nationals a few years in a row. Very excited about that. We're proud of that team. But there's a lot of other schools out there that have flight teams that have been going to Nationals for decades. And you know those big top 10 schools, yes, of course they're going to have flight teams, and they're going to put money into those flight teams. You can learn more about those flight teams at NIFA.aero, the National Intercollegiate Flight Association. That is actually one of the associations I think that a lot of people that are recruiters know about. At the bigger schools, top 10 schools are going to talk about that more so. The other challenge, though, is that if you do go to a top 10 school, there may be 100 applicants for the flight team and they only take 30. You may not get in. At a smaller school, your chances of getting into the flight team might be even better. Also, another pro is cadet programs. There's certain cadet programs that may only be available to certain universities, many times some of those top universities. You know, it makes sense. The colleges that have more people, that's who the recruiters are going to go to. More people are eligible to be hired. That's what's going to happen. So that makes sense for the companies that are hiring those people. So you will see that. So that's another pro. But even, and also the downside, which is a con, but even with the high cost, which is a con, also know this, the high cost is a high cost in one of the most productive degrees. So even though that can be considered a con, the high cost, remember this, at a place like an aviation college where you're spending a lot of money, your productivity in your degree is very high. What do I mean by that? After 5 to 10 years of working at an airline, you're going to be able to pay off those loans and be making a lot more money than you've put into your education. It's a very productive degree. You are getting a lot out of that degree. The other thing about going to a top 10, a degree is preferred no matter what. I know airlines, they say you don't need a degree, and it's true, you don't need a degree. It is preferred. Having a degree from a top 10 school, that's going to help you. Marginally sometimes, but it will help to a certain degree. The other great thing about a large school is, and a top 10 school, and I keep saying large because most top 10 schools are much larger, is that you have this diverse training environment. You have the ability to go and do a lot of different training in other both schools, but also at some other airlines, even overseas. And it gives you a lot of opportunity to actually go in there into not just the cadet programs, but actually maybe get into the chief pilot's office. And maybe you too can work there in the chief pilot's office for maybe a semester, that type of thing. So that is another thing that's really cool. Also, you have this diverse training environment where people might come from all over the world, from all different backgrounds, which you're going to learn about those backgrounds by being there, which is really cool. There's also labs at these schools. This is a pro. There's labs at the bigger schools that the smaller ones just can't afford. And I talked a little bit about that. Altitude chambers, meteorology department. You actually have maybe a screen where you can actually be up on the screen and be teaching about meteorology. Simulator labs, huge simulator labs at these bigger schools. So that'll help you at one of those top 10 schools. And I say top 10, I also mean a lot of those bigger schools, probably the top 25 we should talk about. But just remember, you can have all these different departments you can go to, aviation management, you can go to maintenance. Those are what a big school can do for you. But at a smaller school, sometimes people like that because they have that one-on-one relationship with somebody in that maintenance department. You know, big difference there. The other thing that will happen is that you'll look at the cost, right, and the benefits of those. The cost is really high at a top 10 school. And one of the pros, again, going back to the productivity, is you'll be able to pay that off. Because remember this, that when you get to the airlines, if you get there quicker, possibly because of the network at a larger school, you will be able to get to that $300,000 major airline captain pay quicker. So will that happen for people that are at other schools? Sure they will. I mean, it all depends on you. It depends on your networking. So those are the the pros. Those are the pros. Let's look at some of the cons about going to one of the top 10 schools. The number one is cost. You could have this higher cost, which may be marginal in getting you that job. We just talked about that for a while, but let's look at you becoming more proactive. You actually going out there, maybe getting one of those internships at an airline by going to one of those smaller schools. There's a lot of colleges, there's a lot of airlines that are looking at going towards those other schools other than those top 10 because they want to see a more diverse environment as far as people getting hired, for people from all different backgrounds, folks that can maybe not afford to go to a large school but have to work 3 jobs to make it through the college they're going to. I saw that when I was coaching the flight team at Polk State. Saw people working their butts off. So you have a real diverse environment there with people that actually may have to work 3 jobs just to make it through school. The other thing about not going to a large college is this: you get an infinite return on your investment if you don't go and you get hired, right? So say you get no degree at all and you do all your training outside of one of these big top 10 schools. You do it at an FBO, you do it at a local flight school, and you get hired. You have an infinitesimal return on your investment from that degree because the degree was in something else, or you didn't get a degree at all. So that is something else to look at. Is it really that important? So the aviation degree that is not required nowadays, and that's another con of going to a large top 10 school. It's not required now. It might be, and you're thinking that it's not worth it. Again, we talked about the possibility of moving on into management. Well, there's a lot of these other schools that are out there that are not in the top 10 that are smaller schools that also have aviation management. So you have that background, you have that experience. You can do those internships at Boeing. You can do those internships at Airbus, at JetBlue, at United, American, Delta. That is one of the big cons of going to a bigger school. Sometimes the benefits at a smaller school can be the same as a bigger school. The other big con going to a big school is paying off those student loans. That's a big challenge, and especially with the low salaries in the beginning. Now, with the smaller schools, obviously local schools, you may be able to get through college, say spending $25,000, $30,000, which might be the price of one semester at a large top 10 school. That's a big difference. That's a huge difference. But here's one good thing. There are scholarships available. As a matter of fact, the Stratus Financial, who helps people with loans at these flight schools, they actually are sponsors of this podcast, and they're giving away free scholarships guides. Visit our sponsor, Stratus Financial, where dreams take flight. Stratus Financial offers loans for pilot training, and they understand your needs because they're pilots. You can find out more at stratus.finance. Whether you're financing your dream of flying or simplifying the process by taking care of your student loans, their efficient, hassle-free funding can connect you to the life of your dreams of becoming a professional pilot sooner than you ever thought possible. Visit them at stratus.finance. As a sponsor of this podcast, Stratus Financial is giving away scholarships guides, and you can get yours for free by using the coupon code STRATUS. Visit aviationcareerspodcast.com/free and use that coupon code STRATUS. Again, and please visit our sponsor, stratus.finance. Again, you can go look at those scholarships. It's a terrific guide. It's one of the largest. It is the largest one out there as far as the number of scholarships. But again, going back to the paying that off, that's another con. It's going to take you years to pay off. But you are going into something that pays very well. All those degrees in STEM, et cetera, pay very well. This degree or this application of a certificate, being your pilot certificate, is something that pays off in spades. Do you need a degree to fly an airplane? No. Do you need a degree to get hired? It really depends on the hiring environment. If the environment is being squeezed, it's tightened, then yes, people will say we want to see a degree. They also want to see a lot of flight hours. So most importantly, I want you to concentrate on this. If you're looking at the pros and cons, don't let that hold you up from building your flight hours. Make sure you build flight hours. Don't let a degree get in the way of your flight hours and your pilot certificates. Think about that. Make sure you prioritize that. So to answer that question, should I send my child to a top 10 aviation university as opposed to going to a local college and going to a local flight school? Well, that really depends. And that's something that we help people with through our coaching, aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching, and through our mentorship programs that you can find out, because it really is based on the individual. Is it worth it for you? It might be. Are you looking to get into management? Maybe you can go to a college that focuses on management. Maybe get your MBA at Harvard as opposed to going to another school in the top 10 aviation schools. Go to one of those top 10 management programs if that's what you want to do, is move into management, and get your aviation training at some local school or a school that really appeals to you. So again, I'm hoping you enjoy these pros and cons. If you have some input, I would love to hear about it. Feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. How would you answer this question? What would you tell people if you were asked the same thing? Should I send my child to a top 10 aviation college? What did you get out of your college? In general, whatever school you went to, I'd love to hear about the schools you've gone to. I'd love to read some of those comments here. Feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com. But this is something that I think you should do. What's most important, the degree depends on, and where you get the degree depends on the eventual goal. Focusing on management and not so much on the flying, you want to move into management, focus on a school that's going to allow you to move into those management jobs and gives you that experience and training. But if you truly want to just get a job as a pilot, focus number one on the flying. But do this for me. Take one step every single day to move forward in your career and your life. It might just be watching these videos and doing your research, but the decision to go to a top 10 school, one that's a little more expensive, a lot more expensive, is really personal. And that's something you have to decide depending on your specific needs, and we can help. aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching. If you want to talk to me directly, or if you want to get involved in our mentorship group, check out and click on mentorship, aviationcareerspodcast.com/mentorship. But make sure you take one step every single day to move forward in your career and in your life. And I know you'll get there sooner than you think. Take care and safe flying out there.